Does that help with how microscopic they are? Okay, so if we think of it on that scale, okay, where one pyramid could have 100,000, all right? One of those little pyramids with 100,000 of them, okay? That's why over here they're trying to show this would be connected to a nephron, this one would be connected to a nephron, nephron, nephron. Each one of these collecting ducts, this long, straight, well, it looks like a straight tube, okay, would probably have quite a few, probably about 10 to 20 nephrons leading into one. Okay, so what's going to happen as we enter the loop? We have our descending, we have the loop of Henle, we have ascending, and then distal convoluted tubule. So basically, here's what's happening. The fluid that got formed in this capsule begins to move through this entire tubular structure because of the makeup of the cells. Simple cuboidal, simple cuboidal, simple squamous. Each cell type is very good at allowing materials to move. Because of this, at each portion of this loop, of these distal and proximal, and even as we make it to the collecting duct, it's going to have materials that can move out of the fluid and from the blood capillaries, the vessels that it's going to have a relationship to. We can still get stuff out of the blood. And as it continues to make its way, return stuff to the body, pick more stuff up, and hopefully by the time we get to the areas for the calyx, we have now formed urine. Okay? So the job of these structures, these nephrons, like I said, we've got two types. Look at their makeup, look at where they're located, and look at what portion is surrounded by the blood vessels. So of the two types, cortical, just like their name implies, the majority of it's in the cortex. Very little dips into the renal pyramid and medulla. Does everybody see that? And the blood vessel structure is around this glomerulus and my coiled tubes. Does everybody see that? Over here on the juxtamedullary, juxta meaning across, okay? Juxtamedullary, the glomerulus portion is in my cortex, but the tubes dip very far down into that pyramid, i.e. the part of the medulla. And the blood vessels are around it. Is everybody kind of following me? So of the two types of nephrons, cortical, juxtamedullary, only about 15% of the juxtamedullary, okay, are what they're going to be doing. They're going to help keep a gradient in the medulla, meaning salt. It's going to make that part of the medulla very salty. One of the things that the blood is high in content with is water. It's very high in water amount. Now let's think about this for a second. If for every heartbeat, blood is going to move into the kidneys that is very high in water amount, if this structure, this organ, didn't help to return that water back to the body, do you think we would ever leave the restroom?
No.
No. Roughly about 22 liters this is 5. About four to 6 of these are going to pass through your kidneys per day of fluid. We need to make sure it goes back to the body so that for a day's time, you only produce about 2 liters of urine. Does that help kind of put it into perspective? So, if this portion can be salty, water likes to go from an area of what to what?
Low concentration to high.
From water wants to go, okay, from the area of high concentration to low. It's going to be high in the tubes, low in that medulla around it, and because I have a close relationship to some blood vessels right there, guess what we get to do? If it's high in the tubes, but it's very salty in that tissue around it, out. And because I have a close relationship to the blood vessels right there, guess where it'll move to? Back to the blood vessels to keep blood volume stable, which is one of the functions that the kidney is supposed to do, which will in turn affect blood pressure. Is everybody with me at this point? Because this information, as you move into your tests that you've got to take for your programs, is huge. And one of the things that will happen in your field that you're going into, everything will have an effect on the kidneys. Ask me questions now if you don't understand before we go any further.
Can the nephron get clogged up?
A nephron can get affected. The problem is because of the pressure that it's under it. If it happens, it only has to happen a couple of times and it will burst and it will no longer function.
And by the tubes, you mean like the nephron?
Right. When we say the tubular system is going to be made up of my proximal convoluted tubes, my distal convoluted tubes, the nephron loop, and my collecting duct.
Is there only one collecting duct in every?
There's one collecting duct for about every 10 to 20 nephrons. So if we go back to our understanding of like having 100,000 per papilla, renal pyramid, let's say. Renal pyramid, well then what you're looking at, okay, if we think about 100,000, let's say 10 per collecting duct, that would end up being, what, 10,000 collecting ducts? Yes. Pretty major. In each kidney. Take a break. Be back at 9:30.